Good evening and welcome, new Catamount families. My name is Erica Calero and I'm the Interim Vice Provost for Student Affairs. I have so been looking forward to this evening and the opportunity to greet you and welcome you as you prepare for the fall semester at UVM. I'm joined this evening by my colleague Joe Russell, who you'll hear from in a few minutes. Slide, please. Our format tonight is an information share with a fair bit of advice that we offer in a spirit of generosity and partnership with you. We do have a Q&A chat feature, which we'll turn it on partway through the presentation, and we will of course do our very best to answer as many questions as possible during the discussion and Q&A portion of our session this evening. The session is being recorded. We will plan to caption it and post it very soon for you to share and rewatch. Slide, please. Some of your students are coming to our campus for the very first time, having never set foot here. And to those who are coming to our campus in the fall, having never been here, we wish a special welcome. We know that many of you have had the opportunity to visit us, and we're thrilled to be welcoming you back to campus as well. We have had a year impacted by COVID and significant sacrifice and challenge that accompanied the COVID year. I will tell you, for my part, I'm really looking forward to welcoming students back, to seeing students in classrooms and in labs, dining halls, dance studios, athletic facilities, libraries, out and about around campus, and most of all, I am really looking forward to seeing everyone's smiles. I do think it's important to take stock and really reflect on where your student has been and how they're doing, and to talk about that, because we've all been impacted, and students, I think, have particularly been impacted. We've all grown in some ways, and so taking stock of that as well with your student is important. Slide, please. Thank you. When we think about the first year of college, we really think about it being a huge extended growth moment. And the transition process will be experienced very differently from student to student, but every student will experience a transition process as they move from high school to college. We know that there are some predictable phases in the adjustment process, and there are some real, times of elation, connection, the exhilaration of independence. We also know that there are some bumps and some hurdles that students may experience. Learning to manage limited resources like time, making choices and decisions that support health and support goals, making new friends, developing a sense of belonging in a new place, and so many more. I mean, so many experiences that students will have over the course of the first year naturally bring ups and downs. So we all know to expect this. Students know to expect it. And at the same time, to live it, to navigate it, will both require and catalyze the development of new levels of resilience and tenacity, help-seeking behaviors, boundary-setting behaviors, flexibility. These are all part and parcel of the first year. And again, there's opportunity and challenge, success and hurdles that students will experience. Now, the good news is it's supposed to be hard, and students are surrounded by peers who are going through the same thing. The good news is also that we have an incredible set of supports and services and staff and faculty whose life work this is. Slide, please. So every student's life experiences and skill sets coming into college will vary some, and with time and experience, their skill sets will develop. We know, and there's decades of research demonstrating this, that students who find and create overlap between their academic lives and their social lives are the happiest and the most successful. And as their skill sets in these areas evolve, so does their sense of maturity. You've watched this over the last 17 or 18 years. You've supported this. We will be observing it over the next 4 years or so. It's important that we think intentionally about becoming comfortable with discomfort. It's important that we support students in looking at failure as a learning opportunity. It really matters. Many of you have heard about growth mindset. Many of you know quite a lot about growth mindset. And when I talk about being comfortable with discomfort and looking at failure as an opportunity to learn, I am talking about that within a broader context that we think of as growth mindset. You know, things like the word yet, right? You know, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that yet. Growth mindset. So as young adults choose to go to college and are jostled out of their comfort zone through the choice to attend college, they will encounter challenges, they will encounter difficulty. You will probably hear about this, you know, so it's one thing to say, theoretically, this is growth mindset. What this will look like and sound like to you, you will hear about these challenges through tears, through complaints. You may, you know, some of these challenges will manifest as low grades or lower than hoped for grades. And it's all part of a fairly rapid phase of human growth and development that takes place during the next 4 years, and specifically in the context of a residential 4-year university. So in a sense, you pay us to engineer discomfort, and that discomfort is an essential ingredient, particularly in the first year, and it's an essential ingredient for success in college. Next slide, please. So all of that said, the role of the student is to build skill sets that enable them to climb out of the discomfort and the challenge zone. And there are some critical behaviors that can help them do this. I won't read through each and every slide, but I will say that even very successful, sometimes especially very successful students in high school, as your students have been, have to retool and adjust to new expectations, new environments, a new level of rigor. And this is part and parcel of that challenge, that the perception of the need to adjust and then the experimentation with actually adjusting in ways that are relevant and useful and rewarding to your student. Next slide, please. So I mentioned supports and services. At UVM, there are both broad and specialized supports that you can think of as existing in a set of concentric circles with your student in the middle. The outermost ring is our campus community, which is a very connected and supportive campus community. And in the space in between your student and the broader community, the unique opportunities and the different supports and the different services that students will access at different times. And again, even very successful high school students are supposed to need some of these supports. If you have a student who can't fathom right now that they might be in a position of needing help or asking for help or accessing a particular support, you can help adjust that idea. Because truly every student will use some combination of the huge range of supports and services on campus and the other offerings at different points along the way. Next slide, please. So the social landscape is both incredibly exciting and a huge unknown to students at this point. I would say that to have a really great social experience in college, to have a great social life, things like developing communication skills, further developing communication skills, further developing the ability to self-regulate, further developing boundaries. These are some of the very key pieces. Now, as you might expect, we don't expect that students are coming to UVM in a finished final state with respect to any of these. We do expect that they will take responsibility for their choices, and we do certainly have very strong systems in place to support them, whether their choices in college are ultimately good for them or deeply unhelpful. These choices and the lowercase c consequences that they have can be an incredibly important learning zone for students to exist in. Most will metaphorically scrape their knees at some point, even if it's just by learning that pulling an all-nighter is really not the right way to go through life. But probably there will be other choices that students make and learn don't work for them, don't support their goals, don't support their health. Every single student will be different by the time they come home for winter break. And they will be utterly transformed in 4 years. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide before my colleague Joe Russell takes over for a few minutes. But here we talk about the sense of maturity from the earlier slide. And these are some of the ways that students can stretch, build connections, join community, explore new communities of interest and affinity and identity. This can be exhilarating, and this can be very hard. Wondering whether you fit in, stepping far outside that comfort zone, perhaps feeling sometimes that they don't fit in, but persevering nonetheless. I think that finding ways to persevere is truly part of the you could say the magic or the transformation of the first year of college. Joe, over to you.
Thanks, Erica, and hi, everyone. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Joe Russell, as Erica mentioned. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students here at UVM. I use he, him pronouns. I started working at UVM back in 2005, and so have been here for a few years, and it's been quite a pleasure to kind of become part of and get to know the Catamount community. So I'm equally excited to welcome you to that community, and as Erica mentioned, equally excited to get to know some of your students and hopefully see some of your students and see some of you when we get to the fall. As much as we've gotten so accustomed to and savvy about doing these presentations online over this past year and a half, it still feels a little bit strange to me. Probably most strange is having to sit in a chair and not walk around a room and gesture wildly. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, and there are times that my island blood makes it hard for me to communicate only with my voice instead of sometimes my entire being. But I will do my very best for the sake of our presentation today. Erica has really helped set some context for where we go next in this conversation. And really it is this presentation is born out of some of the things that we observe and see in working with your students over the years. So having heard some of that context, some of the markers of kind of what we think goes into helping a successful first year in college, we would like to encourage you to pause and do a little assessment of readiness. So Josh, if you go to the next slide. To really pause, and again, we understand that it might be late July, and normally when we do this presentation in person, at this slide, you can see the eyes in the audience just go wide. People are kind of like, what are you talking about? Assessing readiness, Joe? That ship has sailed. That train has left the station. There's no question about my student is going to be at UVM this fall. And again, without trying to cause too much worry or fret, my encouragement is to think about and have a conversation if some of the things that we talk about in these next couple of slides may be true for you or your student. It is worthwhile to have a conversation about, all right, is this the right time to head off to college? And if it is the right time to head off to college, what are some of the supports that would be needed to help that transition happen successfully? So again, I'm also not going to read from the slide, but I'm going to pick out a few things here. The first is just a sense of we know historically that though college can be a really helpful new beginning and a new start, again, we know what happens over the 4, sometimes 4+ years of college in terms of student development and maturing and identity, getting to know who you are. What we do know in this specific transition from high school to college, behavior and how things have gone in high school can sometimes be an indication of how things will go at the beginning of college. And so again, my encouragement would be, if your student is really finds it difficult to engage and or advocate for themselves and or take initiative in their own life, again, the question is, what will that look like when all of a sudden the independence of college life greets them? If a student is really withdrawn, it is unlikely that they will get to UVM and all of a sudden magically on day one be very different. And so again, what does that experience look like? And what are some of the conversations that you may be having as a family at home now as you prepare over these next few weeks that might help address, have some conversations, maybe discuss some strategies or some tools to think about what that might look like when a student arrives on campus. I am going to, again, one of the things I'll pick out here, going back to what Erica said, we'll pick out the students who have a hard time dealing with disappointment or conflict or failure or challenges will have a hard time at UVM. Again, in many ways, you are paying quite a bit of money, and the development and learning that happens outside of just what my dad would call just the brainsification of your students is really where the richness of the growth that happens in college really exists. And so if we think about a student that goes through their 4 years of college without any struggle or challenge or difficulty or disappointment, those learning opportunities and those learning moments, where do they go? And so again, thinking about and helping your student normalize and understand and expect, there will be some bumps and there will be some challenge. And it really then is how do we approach that challenge and how do we bounce back from that challenge? That is the helpful thing. Again, this will be online later, but a helpful little video would be to look at WebMD. They have a little video about 5 signs that your teen is ready for college. And so again, a helpful conversation. To a little bit more detail, next slide, please. And we know that this slide is a little bit hard to read. And again, I'm not going to read them all. But if these things ring true for your student, again, I'm just going to say out loud, it is okay to wait. The challenge and one of the most disappointing things from my perspective, and I didn't introduce myself at the beginning of, the thing I spend most of my time doing is helping support and or coordinate support for students who may be struggling at UVM. One of the most frustrating things for me is when I have a conversation with a family in November about their student who is really kind of struggling and things are not going well for. And what they say to me is, boy, Joe, we knew they weren't ready for college. We knew this wasn't the right time to send them to UVM, but we were hoping that maybe somehow things would work out and work out for the best. My challenge and encouragement to you would be, if that rings true for you, in the very least, I'm not saying it's an automatic, you don't get to come to UVM. What I'm going to ask for is to ensure that there is some communication or dialogue happening between you and UVM about what that looks like. Because again, as we will see soon, it may not be, now is not the right time, but in the very least it will be, oh, all right, well, we're aware of some of the challenges, and then let's make sure we have a robust plan of support in place proactively ahead of time, because we can hope that things will go well. I say to my students often that hope is not a strategy. And I think in this moment, it is helpful to have a strategy. In this moment, it is helpful to have a plan proactively in place. Again, I'm going to point out some things here of significant hospitalization or a suicide attempt, or again, a very clear pattern of behavior in high school that is of concern, substance misuse or abuse, independence and social isolation. Again, the encouragement here is, if these things are sounding at all familiar, please do engage with us. I would much prefer to have a conversation now with a family who's a little bit like, well, Joe, okay, let's kind of talk this through. And do you have suggestions about places that my student might be able to get connected? that conversation is so much easier to have now than in November. Next slide. And again, just to put up here for you all, and we will put in the chat at some point as we open up the chat, both for questions, but also to provide information, some links to some of the resources and supports that we have on the slide here. Again, my encouragement to you is if any of those things ring true for you or your student, it's worthwhile to think of a proactive strategy and plan. And those could include accommodations through student accessibility services, ongoing connection to mental health or physical health providers here at UVM, or from back home in an effective ongoing way. And then again, appropriate academic support. So we're going to delve into a couple of those here as we go along. But again, please do, if it feels as though you're not as savvy or not as aware of what these resources look like at UVM, please do be reaching out to us for some answers and support. Next slide. As we think about these next coming weeks, and again, I hope that you all are getting excited. I'm sure there's a nervous energy and excitement happening in your home as you think about the countdown to arrival on campus in late August. We encourage families to have open and upfront conversation with their student. Some of the topics on the screen here are things that we certainly will engage your student with as they arrive on campus in that first weekend that they arrive here, and then certainly in their first year across several classes and programs in their residence hall, programs put on by our Student Life Office. Some of these topics will be discussed. And we think it's way more effective to have the partnership of some family conversation happening. What we do know, research tells us that students really do listen to the expectations that are set for them by family. And so we invite you to engage your student in some of these topics. Again, I'll name when we do this conversation in person, there is some unease when we start to talk about, like, are you talking about with your student healthy sexual relationships and consent and what that means? Are you setting expectations about what substance use might look like for them in college? Are we talking about COVID? And again, some of the, as Erica mentioned at the onset, both some of the lingering challenges coming out of COVID and also some of their strengths, the new strategies, the new lessons, the new tools that they have in their tool belt because of having to study at home for some time or because of having to adjust and adapt to COVID. So again, our encouragement is, and we could probably spend an entire presentation on each of these topics individually. We're not going to do that. It may be as simple as engaging your student with a conversation of, we've never talked about, you're going to go to UVM and you may have friends who are sharing prescription drugs. Is that something that you would ever feel able to talk with us about? Do you have a sense of, what will your student report back to you or not report back to you? Is there openness to that? Is that an expectation? Is it not an expectation? I think these are some of the things that, again, we find for students who transition well into their fall year, some of these family conversations have been happening. So again, it may be uncomfortable or awkward, but we think it pays dividends. And so we encourage you to have those conversations. Next slide. Some of the information that we want to present, and again, I'm not going to try and read point by point here, but in the green box on these slides are some resources that are helpful to know. In the blue box, helpfully, are some of the things that we believe your student should really know. And so again, we offer to you as a way to help reinforce that message with your student. So you may be able to have a conversation and just ask the question of, well, how are you doing with your UVM emails? Because you know that it's an expectation that students are reading and checking their UVM emails regularly. To point out a few resources in the green box on this slide, I think UVM really does a good job of managing some of what could be potential emergencies in and around the area. And so we have a whole group of staff who help respond to those, and a couple systems in place that are really effective. One that I'm going to highlight is the Live Safe app. I really encourage you to encourage your student to download the Live Safe app. It not only has very direct connection to emergency services, but a whole bunch of resources at a student's fingertip on their phone that students have reported to us are super helpful. Similarly, all students who register a phone number with us are automatically enrolled in our CAT alert system. And so again, if you've not already caught on that everything at UVM has CAT related to the name, our alert system is called the CAT alert system. You as family can also sign up for emergency alerts that would go out to our campus so that you might get notified on your phones if an emergency is happening on campus. If that's of interest to you, I encourage you to go online and just search for signing up for CAT alerts, and you'll get information about how to enroll. Next slide. Again, I'm going to allow you to read the resources in the green box and say some of the encouragements that we ask you to follow up with your student about are simple things. It sounds simple, but the impact is huge. And it could be, again, setting the expectation for your student. We will give them this message. We ask that you reinforce the message. When you're not in your residence hall room, lock your door. It is simple, and I will actually name that a part of the struggle in this area is that sometimes we are a product of our own success, that students build such great community on their floor and in their residence halls that it really feels very safe, very open. We've heard stories of students being like, well, I wouldn't lock my door because my friends come in and out of my room all the time to grab something, and I wouldn't want to stop them doing that. Of course, we very rarely will see occasions of a laptop going missing or something going awry. So again, encourage your students to lock their doors. Again, some of these things are pretty normal college things. And so some of you, if you've gone to college, you may have these experiences as well. Encourage your student to get to know our shuttle bus system around campus and between some off-campus locations and campus. Again, especially on weekends, as a helpful, safe way to get to and from around town. I feel fortunate that the Burlington area is a very safe place, and yet we still remind students that having a mind towards safety and making intentional choices about safety are really effective. Next slide. Again, some of you will have already heard, your students should have already gotten some information about some of the, again, online courses that we ask them to do ahead of time. Again, please do reinforce those messages with your student. Helpful to know that UVM has a very robust medical amnesty program. So we do a lot of education and training with students around this as well. And basically it is a program that holds faultless, or students will not have any student conduct consequences or ramifications for seeking help for themselves or for a friend if they are in medical need. Clearly to avoid the concern of, oh, well, there was a beer present and we didn't want to call the RAs because we would get in trouble, but we were worried about a friend. And so we tell students that UVM really values first and foremost safety and health of all of our community members. And so the expectation is that students are calling for help when they need it. Again, we do a lot of work with students around substance use education. Again, UVM does not allow alcohol or cannabis or other drugs on campus. And so again, it's just a simple reminder. Your student may be coming from an environment in which, again, either that's not part of the conversation or there is this acceptance of it. And we ask that you remind your students that those things are prohibited here at UVM. The final bullet in this blue box is also just to make a plug for many of your students will get to go through during their time at UVM a training program called Step Up, which is a bystander intervention training program that really helps students kind of start to get to the place of, if I see something going on and it makes me feel uncomfortable or I'm not sure, how do I intervene either to get help to that situation or to be a source of help myself or to help make things better off. And so again, many of your students would have come to us with some experience in bystander intervention trainings, and we encourage them to get involved here in that way as well. Next slide. Some of the resources that we want to make sure that we are highlighting to you as well. Some of you may know these resources already, but again, some of these are just helpful things to know about at UVM. Many academic resources. I will highlight our tutoring center on campus that does a whole bunch of subject area tutoring, but also then kind of study skills and college success workshops and seminars. And it's free. Or I should say, you have already paid for it. It maybe is quite not free, but the idea is it doesn't cost extra. And so, as Erica mentioned, this is one of those examples of, we know the analogy I use with many of my students would be, when you go to a gym, you don't see only people who are starting out or who need to get more healthy at the gym. You also see people who are like super fit and healthy at the gym. And often when I bring up tutoring to students, they kind of shy away from me like, well, no, I'm a really good student. I don't know if I need tutoring. And my gentle encouragement to them is, yeah, this is a really helpful resource at UVM, and you're a good student. I'm going to suggest and articulate that connection with a tutor in this area will only make you a better student. So again, really becoming familiar with some of these resources. Again, as your students start their career at UVM, not many first-year students think of the Career Center as the place for them to go and get information. We normally think about that as a senior on the way out. Here at UVM, we really are going to drive home connection with the Career Center from early on, and so I'll get to that in a moment. I also encourage you and your students to get to know the most local resources for your student will be the resources right there in their building where they live in residential life. And so their RA, who is a peer, a fellow student, but then a number of professional staff who are there to support them. I really encourage that. We also have a number of identity-based centers on campus that are wonderful supports, both for advocacy, but also in terms of finding community. A number of health resources, again, as I mentioned earlier, mental health providers, physical health providers, and a lot of education outreach that happens as well. This fall, UVM is excited to announce that we're partnering with HopeWorks, which is a local organization, to provide 24-hour access to victims advocates here on campus for survivors of sexual violence. And so, again, it may be a resource that your student may already be asking questions about, and we encourage you to, again, highlight for them what exists. Some of this already exists for students in a very user-friendly platform, a web app called the Navigate app. If your student has not downloaded the Navigate app, I really am going to highlight it's the easiest way to get connected with advisors and resources on campus, to get information about when do you register for courses and what's coming up next. So if they haven't done that already, please ask the question, do you have the Navigate app? And go to the UVM website to download that. Oh, I'm seeing here a question maybe about do residence halls have dorms and do residence halls have safes that lock? And the answer is UVM does not provide safes in the room. I think what we do see is that many students will choose to bring a small little lockbox or something that they can bring with them to keep certain items secure. Those could be medications, it could be their passport if they have that, etc. So we would encourage you to bring that on your own as needed. Next slide. Again, I mentioned the Career Center. Here at UVM, we really do advocate that the path to career success starts in your first year of college. And so I'm going to encourage you to encourage your students, especially for students who are finding themselves feeling a little bit like they have lots of time on their hands, and they call home and they're like, well, yeah, I feel like I have a lot of time. I'm really managing things really well. A helpful prompt would be, well, have you checked out the Career Center? And where are you in your kind of 4-year path to career success? And it will help give them some prompts around how are they creating experiences and finding ways that will set them up for success once they leave UVM. The big message for this slide is also that we find that students who are engaged and active, and one of the reasons that I work at UVM is because we have a very active student body, is students who engage and take part in the very rich fabric of the UVM's landscape do better. They are healthier, they are more successful the more they engage. And so again, it is an encouragement of not only taking part in the things that students find as their comfort zone, right? Maybe the things that they did in high school or before UVM, they might want to continue, but certainly an opportunity to learn and expand their horizons here at UVM. And that could be in any number of the sporting or club or activity-based opportunities here at UVM. And so again, a super helpful thing is just to be able to ask them as they come into UVM, how are you finding that? Have you checked out any new clubs yet? Early in the semester, students will hear about an activities fair in which all the clubs and organizations at UVM kind of showcase what they do. A wonderful opportunity for incoming students to start to find their people, right? To start to find the people that they will connect with, make relationships with, and grow together with. So again, any number of these opportunities are really, really helpful. I'm going to encourage you to take a snapshot or again, come back to this slide and be able to ask very specific questions when your student feels like they may be, well, I don't know, I'm not sure, you know, I'm maybe having a hard time finding friends. To come back and ask some of these very questions are really helpful strategies for them to start to say, all right, okay, I guess I could put on my to-do list, I'm going to go to a new club this week and just see who I find there, see what connection might happen there. We've seen lots of success with that, and so we pass that to you as you support your student as well. I'm going to hand back over to Erica here, and again, we'll probably be back when we do some question and answer towards the end of the presentation. But it's again, so glad that you have joined us, and look forward to seeing you here in a couple of weeks in August.
Thank you so much, Joe. So I'm going to take it here with a few more of the tips that we have compiled for you. As you might imagine, communication is absolutely key and critical to success in so many areas of life, and college is right up there. Finding information, using information, asking for information, asking for help, becoming the handler of their daily needs and life business is a very key activity and will both require and enable students to develop better and better, more and more complex and more proactive communication skills. Many of you know this, so please hear this as affirmation. You can support this by encouraging independence. I have observed over the years that families do just an incredible job of, you know, kind of, I'll say, loosening the reins, sometimes bravely and rightly letting go of the reins. And this is really just developmental magic for students. Next slide, please. So I mentioned handling their own life business, and part of handling their own life business has to do with the information that we can and cannot share. So the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, and amended several times since then, both protects student information and upon arrival in college empowers students to make a big move in the direction of personal agency. So again, you know, handling their life business. Now, the excellent news is that we all want the same thing. We are all working very hard, and your student working hardest of all, in the direction of growth and success. So so this is a very supportive environment for students to be undertaking an amplified set of responsibilities on as you know, growing adults. And it's also an environment where when students speak up and indicate that they need some support or assistance, UVM is stacked to the rafters with people well equipped to do that, and well equipped to understand the signs and signals that students may be communicating when they're not quite sure what the question is to ask. We do need students to step forward, raise their hand, send an email, stop by an office and say, I'm not quite sure what I need in this moment, if that's the case, or if they do know what they need, to indicate that, and we'll be off to the races in support of your student. If you have a deep concern We do want to hear from you, but again, FERPA will be in place and will, for the most part, enable us to hear from you so that we can work with your student in partnership. Next slide, please. So having said that, we do absolutely really need and value partnership and communication, and we have, these are some of the moments in time when you will hear from us. There are others as well. Joe has outlined some of those. There is no shortage of ways to hear from, share with, and be in community with us, even at great distance. So we do encourage you to access all of the information that we share and provide. You will learn a ton about the exciting and dynamic campus that your student is joining by staying in communication via these and other methods. Next slide, please. I think that awareness of the fine print is useful. And again, in the spirit that we're sharing tonight, while some of these pieces will be very important for some families, and you'll know this just by looking at this slide, for other folks this may not feel so pressing. I think taking a screenshot of this slide is not a bad idea if that's something you want to be able to look into in the immediate future. Again, we'll be sharing this presentation back out with you, and you'll be able to access all the resources that we reference. Next slide, please. And so we have arrived at the summary of the tips that we hope you have found helpful thus far. Next slide, please. All right, I'm getting excited for fall. I know I'm supposed to enjoy the moment. It's 75 and sunny in Burlington this evening, and those of you who are in the vicinity are also enjoying this incredible weather. And we are planning for fall. So this year we're expanding our invitation from a single fall weekend in the direction of supporting flexibility and affordability, in hopes that you will be able to visit campus at a time that works for you. This is not an expectation, and if it doesn't work for you to come to campus, your student will not be disadvantaged or missing out. Maybe send a postcard or a care package. This is actually another good slide to get a screenshot of. That URL will be shared widely, but it gives you a sense of the range of activities and some of our suggestions for what you might consider doing if you are able to visit. We could debate the best season in Vermont all day, but instead of doing that, I'll go ahead and settle the topic by saying early fall is the best, and if you can visit, you really should do so. Next slide, please. Okay, and a couple more dates for you. So before we get to the Q&A, this is our last slide. Before we get to Q&A, just want to invite you to take note of the next few conversations. We hope you'll be able to attend. We have had, during the pandemic, a UVM Strong framework, and it has transitioned to a future-focused, what we call UVM Forward framework. And on August 3rd, we'll talk in some pretty specific detail about academics, residential life and the move-in process, activities, engagement, and many more topics. So I haven't had a chance to look at the questions coming in on the chat yet. I imagine that there might be some specific questions that I think you'll hear a lot more on August 3rd. And then families in transition, we're very excited to be in person for this. As you might imagine, that was not possible last year. This is it's an opportunity on the day that you move your student in. It's an opportunity for you to sort of have a moment and reflect on your transition, because we have spent a lot of time tonight talking about your students' growth and development and the importance of communication and some of the accompanying pieces. We want to just name that the transition that you as parents, caregivers, families, friends will go through is also real. If you have a student who has already left home, perhaps gone to college, then you know this. You may have, if you haven't had that, you probably have friends, acquaintances, or an idea that there's a transition coming. And I just want to affirm, yes, there is a process that you'll go through as well. So We'll supply the Kleenex. You just plan to attend, and we'll see you. We'll see you then and there, and you'll get more information about this, of course, as the time draws near. Next slide, please. So here we are. At this point, we both invite questions. I see that they're coming in, and we'll do our best over the next 15 or so minutes to answer a multitude. And let me see, I'm just going to do a couple of clicks and get over to where I see them. And Joe, my friend, please be ready to unmute. And apologies for the barking dog out the window at my house. Let's see, we drawers. Okay, first question that I see. Regarding academic supports and accommodations, do advisors help students determine needs and recommend and encourage students to seek supports and accommodations? Advisors don't determine needs. Advisors can and do encourage students who have not already connected with our Student Accessibility Services Office to do so, but this is a very good point in time for students who know that they will be requesting accommodations to connect with our Office of Student Accessibility Services.
Erica, I'm also seeing a question slightly further up that asks, what type of social engagement activities are planned for a freshman for the first few days on campus?
You want to go ahead and?
Sure, I will. So a lot of work is being put into those first few days. So some of your students may be participating in a TREC program that will be kind of prior to the real big campus-wide kickoff of activities. But from the very first night that they are on campus, there will be a fairly packed. In fact, sometimes the challenge for us is to how do we intentionally make it not too packed opportunities, coordinated in part by residential life RAs, but also a separate set of orientation leaders for this fall orientation welcome to campus. The goal will be to offer a number of events and activities that are both small scale, opportunities to get to know people that they may live with or in their learning community, and then some pretty big scale. They will have an opportunity in that first weekend to be together as an incoming class for the first time, which many of us are both excited about to see what that will look like, especially coming out of the year that we've had, and anticipate there may be some mixed emotions and feelings for students to be in a group of so many students after COVID. So we'll see. Coming out of opening weekend, and again, students will get a detailed itinerary of what activities will exist for them. Coming out of that week will also be a number of events and programs meant to engage students directly, and really also meant to engage and allow students to find and connect with each other. And so again, as students arrive, they will have information about what those events are. I will copy and paste a link into Brenda's question that's published, so everyone can at least see some of that information that's already posted on our website.
Joe, there's a related question actually about late night programs. Do you want to speak to that?
Again, I will name. I will answer it by saying I know that there will be late night programming options. In that opening weekend, one of those big signature events is an evening program in which students are able to kind of do a whole bunch of fun things. And then throughout their first 6 weeks of college, there will be opportunities for various late night programs. Many of those programs are going to be run by what's called the University Program Board, which is UVM's student-run programming arm, and they do a fantastic job. Again, a shameless plug for them is some of your students will be really keen to get connected to that group. They are the group that help put on some of our big signature events across the year, big concerts or kind of big signature events like that. But they also do very regular ongoing work. How do they bring comedians and smaller bands, or how do they have small programs in the Brennan's Cafe on the ground floor of the Davis Center that all students are invited to? And so again, if you have not been introduced to an online events calendar at UVM, I encourage you to bookmark this page, and for you then to kind of direct your student to it. If you were to go to UVM and just search the word "I'm bored," it will come up. We call it the UVM board page. Is our events calendar here at UVM, and it lists all the things that are available to be done at any given time. And again, I will often ask students the question of, all right, having a hard time or not quite sure what to do, have you gone on UVM board and just seen what some of the offerings are for this Wednesday night or this Friday night? And oh, gee, there's a thing at Brennan's. Do you want to invite your roommate and go to that thing at Brennan's and see what it's like? So I highly encourage you to get familiar with that resource as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I see two questions that they feel connected to me. I'll read them both. One says, my daughter's an identical twin and got even closer to her sister in the pandemic. They're going to different schools and I worry about the separation. Not too far down, I see, what is some general advice around how parents help their child get through any homesickness? So recognizing that these are not identical questions, they nonetheless feel connected to me in the sense that you're naming and you're recognizing that there can be moments of sadness and loneliness and really missing somebody, whether it's an identical twin or home or many other, really important people and parts of life. This is part of the transition, and I think it's really important to normalize the not so great parts of transition. We talk a lot about excitement. You're going to hear a lot that reinforces that the transition is exciting, and it's very important to make space for the idea and the potential reality that your student might feel lonely, might not know what to do, in any particular moment with that loneliness or about that loneliness, or how to sort of climb out from that place. My advice would be to make space for those feelings, and process those moments with your student. I would also encourage you to encourage your student to find new friends and take some what may feel like social risks in finding other people who might be willing to whether process similar experiences or kind of link arms and go find something new or different to do, even if it's just a walk around campus or sitting outside together and talking and getting to know each other. I think also that many of the sort of open-ended questions that you may be in a position to ask to help students process the transition, to ask questions about classes. Are classes different from what you had expected? Are they different from, in what ways are they different? And how can you make those differences work well for you? Where do you look to get a sense of what's happening on campus or what's coming up in your classes? Have you connected with perhaps an advisor? Have you considered clubs or activities that you might be interested in getting involved in? Sort of expanding the range of questions. But again, I want to just say this. I would encourage you not to gloss over those tough feelings that may really truly not just exist but last for a little while. So both hold space and encourage some risk, what might feel like risk taking in the form of connecting with peers or some of the other people, again, whether they're advisors or other adults they may have connected with, to process that arrival moment. And please be assured These are moments that those of us who work here in many capacities are prepared for. We do program and plan around this transition, and we're on the lookout for students who are reaching out in an effort to form new connections and community. By processing what students are going through, they are building resilience, and by having you help them think through, how are you feeling now? What are some of the things that you had been looking forward to and that you can make movement in the direction of, and helping them answer their own questions about how to become involved or engaged. Joe, you have a lot of experience, I think, in this realm as well, and so I just want to pause and invite you to chime in if you have words of wisdom to share. No pressure.
Well, my only addition, Erica, might just be would be first an encouragement to talk to somebody about it, right? And that somebody could be any number of resources here at UVM. Again, anyone who works in higher ed and worked with college-age students is familiar with what that transition can look and feel like. And there are times that a simple person to be able to engage with that's not home, family. Sometimes I think there is a certain kind of support that can come from home and only from home. And at times an ability to be able to have a conversation that might be a little bit less emotionally fraught, or might not have simultaneous pangs of, oh, I'm talking to mom and I miss home. So talking to someone, I think, is always a helpful resource. And then the only other thought would be just to share the knowing that it may be part of the experience, as Erica has mentioned, and then just to be attentive to where your student might be on what could be the bell curve, right? If we think of a bell curve of students who may be experiencing a rough transition or homesickness, the middle of the bell curve will be students who go through that, are able to kind of figure out a way through it, and that starts to go away fairly quickly in those first few weeks of college. They're finding their people, they're making connections, they're engaging in their academics, they're starting to see their life at UVM, and often the anxiety and the uncertainness and the risk and the out of my comfort zone-ness starts to go away naturally. On the fringes of that will be some students for whom it does not get better very quickly. It might escalate, in fact. Those feelings may only intensify. It may become very clear that, again, the conversation might be, yeah, I'm not quite sure that doing this is the right thing for me right now. And again, just to be able to hear that, and my invitation again there would be, and if that seems to be your student, to have conversations with folks at UVM, and we can help filling some of the gaps and ask some probing questions to determine, all right, is the right decision for your students' safety and well-being to leave UVM and take a semester off? So again, the bell curve really is, I think, helpful to hold that the majority of students will get through that, and that they're not alone. It's for me, when I speak to students and I'll ask the question like, who else on your floor is feeling the same way? And they'll give me this look as if to say, yeah, no one, I'm the only one. And I'm like, I will bet money. I will bet money and guarantee that you are not the only one. That there are other students who are really feeling that as well. And sometimes finding those folks out, having some connections, again, sometimes in conversation with residential life staff who may know some of those people and help that connection, facilitate that connection, can be super helpful.
Thanks, Joe. Listening to you talk, I did think of two other thoughts. One is, and this will be very intuitive to many. I'll voice it anyway. I think reminding your student that you love them and that you believe in them, and that you know that they can move through. If again, we're not talking about a situation that Joe has referenced where your spidey sense tells you this is probably not the right time. But I think that sort of some of those, like just reminding your student that they have been through a lot. They have learned and grown an incredible amount, particularly in the last year and a half. And the other thing is fill the mail with candy and send it to them. Send care packages. They're gold. They're absolute gold. And there's nothing like the boost of getting a package. Really, really, truly, it doesn't have to be, you know, incredibly, it doesn't have to be the most exciting stuff in the world. Although feel free to send exciting stuff, but it just really getting mail is such a treat. And mail from you will just be a huge boost and so welcome. Our next question is, when is the official goodbye to freshman students? Is it the Families in Transition event? So you will say goodbye to your student and then come to the family farewell and the Families in Transition event if you choose to come to that event. It is optional, not required. So yes, that is a good moment in time for you to separate from your student and then come share a few moments with us before you depart. We have a question about whether a couple questions. Will the in-person events be streamed at all? With my son going on trek, we will be dropping him off early, so not around for the in-person programs. And then a similar following question. At this point, our plan is not to stream that event, and it's really due to the Joe, I think you might have an elegant way of describing what this event is in a nutshell, and that it doesn't really translate to a live stream format.
I will agree, Erica. I mean, over the years, we've offered this presentation in many years past. And we always get this question: why don't you record this session? Why don't you live stream it, especially with today's technology available? And I'll name it. My heart does go out to folks who are unable to, and there are some families we know who will be unable to participate, even though they will be present that day. You know, the need to kind of unpack, drop their student off, and then get back on the road for a long drive home. We acknowledge that, and we apologize for that. The presentation really is a conversation, and a fairly intimate conversation, you know, and I think there is the benefit and the freedom of kind of like, no, we're not being watched by thousands of people online. We are having a conversation together here in this room. So I'll name, you know, at some point maybe we will find a way. I think really another answer to that question would be, we've not yet found a way to do that and maintain the integrity and the closeness of that conversation. And so one day we may find that. I will apologize for parents and families who are unable to join us for that. But again, welcome conversation with you. Should you have questions about the content that we present there, we in a very like nerdy way, I love to have that conversation about what does that transition as a family unit look like as your student gets ready to, and then goes off to, and then goes through college. So happy to do that. I am also looking at time here, Erica, and I don't want to be respectful for people who have joined us right on time. We're about 5 minutes over. Erica, do you have a sense of wrapping up? Do we want to take one or two more, or are we going to invite people just to follow up with us one-on-one if need be? Oh, Erica, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm scanning the list. Why don't we take one or two more and then invite folks to join us on August 3rd, because we will be going into considerable depth in some of the areas that we're receiving questions about, such as residential life and move-in. As I'm scrolling, I'm seeing a question about, are students given an opportunity to navigate their class schedules prior to classes starting? Often, yes. There are some peer-to-peer mentorship programs on campus, and students will be making connections over the weekend, and we'll do often a walk around to identify the buildings, and often like the actual, you know, that door, go in there for your chem lecture. Orientation leaders will typically do the same thing. So yes, students will not wake up on Monday morning and have no idea where to go. I'll just say, please do equip your student. If for some reason they miss the communication or whatever, that doesn't happen, they should absolutely speak up and talk to their orientation leader and or their RA, and just make it known that they would like to walk around. They should also reach out to roommates, other peers. I mean, these are some of the moments that, when students are graduating, that we hear about in some of our focus groups. It turns out that the person I ran into when I was trying to figure out where my class was going to be on the first day is the person that I ended up rooming with as a sophomore. I mean, just these kinds of anecdotes abound. Are there limits on how many well, this is a move-in question, but since I started to read it, are there limits on how many family members can help move their student in? Nope, there aren't. And why don't we pause there for this evening? Again, as Joe said, out of respect for your time, we really look forward to seeing you on August 3rd. Here again at 7 o'clock. You'll be getting the link, you'll be getting a reminder, and you'll be hearing in great depth and detail about some of the very specific topics that are important and useful for you and for your students to hear about before you arrive on campus. We really appreciate you joining us. This is exciting for us. It's beyond exciting, honestly, after the COVID year that we have collectively lived through. It is so energizing to think about seeing everybody's smile, their unmasked smile, as they move in and become comfortable on and familiar with campus. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again and meeting many of you in person later this summer.